Well, BC had one of its worst fire seasons ever in 2021, and one of the things that made this season stand out in particular was the proximity of large wildfires to major population centers in the southern interior. We saw numerous evacuations and alerts for many areas, along with relentless heat and smoke throughout the summer, and of course, a near total loss of the village of Lytton. Well, extreme heat continues here in Lytton, British Columbia for a third straight day now. It all really began in late June following an unprecedented heat wave that saw Canada's all-time record high temperature smashed in Lytton, BC, which nearly reached 50 degrees Celsius on June 29th. Now, I'd gone to document the heat wave and found it was very challenging to cover because all of my camera gear would just overheat after being outside for a couple of minutes. It's almost kind of like being at the spa. The air has this kind of smell of cooked juniper and sagebrush. Now, initially the mood was lighthearted, and there was even tourists that had traveled to the village just to feel the extreme heat. I did some experiments and walked around the village taking temperature measurements with an infrared gun, not having any idea of what was about to come. But like clockwork, on the Tuesday that the all-time temperature record was broken, a number of wildfires just exploded across the southern interior. I quickly left Lytton and drove towards Savannah, where I saw just a tremendous pyrocumulonimbus exploding into the lower stratosphere at sunset. Now, I got in a little bit closer to the inferno that evening and recall the sound of the fire just roaring up on the mountainside, and I also noticed some birds fleeing from the fire, which was a very eerie moment. The next day, I continued to document the same massive thunderstorm generated by the Sparks Lake fire itself, which would trigger hundreds of cloud-to-ground strikes that would start even more fires. It was then that my Weather Network colleague Jacqueline called me with some horrific news. She said, "Kyle, have you heard about Lytton?" I said, "No, what happened?" She said, "The village is gone." The fire came up so fast that over 90% of the community was lost in about 20 minutes, which meant residents were forced to flee, leaving belongings and pets behind. I actually wept when I heard this because I'd gotten to know the village and some of its residents in recent days. It was just devastating. So I went home to the prairies for a few weeks, but the fire season raged on in southern BC.
We're under an evacuation alert. What that means is that we have to be ready to go at any time if we get an evacuation order. So
our own Jacqueline Whittall, who lives in Vernon, was under an evacuation alert for about 3 weeks, with some really tense moments at times as the White Rock Lake fire burned on just the other side of Okanagan Lake.
This is charred. It's from across the lake. Look at this ash on my hands. This is just okay.
I came back to the Okanagan Valley myself in mid-August just as severe fire weather conditions peaked. At one point, the entire city of Vernon, a city of nearly 50,000, was placed under evacuation alert. This is officially the weirdest sky I think I've ever seen. The skies just turned this apocalyptic orange one evening, but I wasn't quite prepared for what I would see the next day. I've never seen anything like this. It's terrifying. The sun has just been blotted out by the smoke. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a little ways northwest of Vernon, the sky turned black. I had the wherewithal to do a Facebook Live in those terrifying moments to share the experience with others. It's a very serious situation, given the fact that it is dark as night out here in the middle of the day. The crickets are singing. It's absolutely terrifying. Like, I'm actually shaking right now. The summer of 2021 will go down as one of the worst wildfire seasons on record in BC, and was a very impactful and eye-opening assignment for me personally.